Well, I saw Evil Dead Rise because it was on Max. And I've seen all the others, so let's see what this one does. Well, not much. This will be the second reboot of Evil Dead. Now, they already did one, which was more of a reboot of the original film. It's just, you know, the girl becomes the main character instead of Ash. There was a guy who kind of looked like Ash, but he wasn't. It's been a while since I've seen that one. And, and they go through everything, and it's a bit, well, of course, it had more money and all that sort of stuff. And it's a full-on horror movie. And then that was it. Then Ash vs. Evil Dead happened, and that was much better. Evil Dead's a strange franchise in that it's the beginning of Sam Raimi's career, and it's always a horror movie is got to be the best way to learn of filmmaking and whatnot, and for you to break in, should you so desire, because a lot of times you can go do a lot on the cheap. And a lot of times less is more. You can achieve that psychological terror in how you frame your scenes and shots. You can go a long way. And basically, if you've got access to a house and a couple of people willing to play the part for a weekend, you can shoot your movie. And or you say some property with woods and stuff like that. That's not really all you need. So, So now there's this one. I don't know that it would go anywhere. In fact, I'm thinking the other reboot was probably better. This one at least appears more original in that it's a bit of a departure from the others, and certainly from the other reboot. In this one, it starts off, you think, oh, well, of course, they're in the woods. You've got some young people staying at a cabin. And something mysterious is already happening to one of them, and oh, she's possessed. She scalps her sister and murders her boyfriend, decapitates him. Oh boy! And then that's the opening titles, and then they say, well, earlier. So you're in town in some crappy rundown apartment building. That's already condemned, and the tenants have got the timeline to move out and all this stuff. But this woman shows up, and her sister lives there, and she's, I guess, needing to stay at her place for a while. Little she finds out, well, we're about to all be evicted, so won't be staying here for long. So she goes in there, she discovers she's pregnant, and she's like, oh God, what am I going to do? All this type of stuff. The sister has 3 kids, and so that's the whole setup in this crappy old apartment building. And then there's an earthquake, and the earthquake opens up a basement room that I guess no one knew about, and there's a vault in there, and the kids explore it, and the boy finds, well, the Necronomicon, they call it something different. I forget what they call it, but it's a different term for it. Unless this is an indication that this could all be in the same universe. It's just this is yet another Book of the Dead. Maybe there were several or what have you. But kid finds it, thinks, whoa, cool, and some old records, and he's obsessed with vinyl and stuff. They established that. They did. And he brings it in, he plays the records, and guess what? Well, it turns out some priest found this old book, and on the record is a recording of the meeting that he had with other priests, bishop, what have you. And he says, hey, think of what we could learn from this old book, ancient stuff. And the other priests forbid him to do it, say it's a desecration, and you should leave it alone. Of course he does it, so he does the incantation, and he releases demons. So it's very similar to the original story that they find in the tape in the cabin and all that. What's his name? The professor did. And stupidly, by reading playing the incantation, now the demons are released into the building, and their mom becomes possessed. And instead of being violated in the woods by branches and vines, their mother is violated by elevator cables and all that stuff. So she shows up. She's possessed by the Deadite. What little consciousness of her is left, she begs her sister not to let it take her babies. And so there you are. The battle is on. And one disgusting scene after another. The kids, except for the little youngest, the little girl, doesn't get possessed. All this sort of stuff. Then the mother and the kids form into a multi-legged creature. That was new. And chases them around. They manage to get out. Other tenants are just there to get killed. It looks like they're, for a while, that's kind of the thing, is like some of the neighbors, I thought, oh, they might be leading something with them, you know, but nah, they just get wiped out. And they become possessed too, and all that sort of stuff. But the pregnant sister and the girl, they make it out in the end, and basically you discover, oh, the sister is the stand-in for Ash. There's a chainsaw just, you know, laying around. She uses that, and then all of a sudden she's doing Ash lines and come get some. And I mean, up to that point, it's full-on horror. There's really nothing funny about it, you know, and there's, you know, sad, you know. I mean, her sister and her nephew and niece, they're gone, and just all these other people have been murdered in front of her and all that stuff. So, but ultimately, she kills them by conveniently, there's a wood chipper in the garage, and she grinds them away. And despite them, she and the little girl were flooded in blood. One of the things I suggest is that once you've been exposed to a Deadite's, you know, fluids, you become infected and stuff like that. So I would have thought they both would have gotten possessed, but I guess that was just the blood for show, you know. So anyway, they escape, and that's that. Well, what about that opening scene? Oh, well, the girl that became possessed in the opening scene, well, she lived in that building too, and was completely unaware, didn't hear, there were shotguns fired in here and stuff like that. It must have slept through the whole thing. And then so she goes to the garage, and she's talking to a sister that she's later going to scalp, and says, hey, we're going to go have fun at that cabin and all that stuff. And then she comes into the garage and suddenly noticed, hey, there's blood and guts everywhere. And then she gets possessed. So there you go. That explains what happens later at the cabin in the woods. Yes. I don't know if she went and grabbed the book, I guess. But anyway, it did, you know, I didn't think it was all that great. Looked creepy. It was shot well. You know, and of course the typical gore and violent torments that the victims go through and all that. Yeah. But you know, this reminded me of another movie that was much better, which was originally a Spanish film, which is actually the better version, and then there was an American version, which was all right, wasn't bad. The American version was called Quarantine, but the original version was REC, you know, short for record, because it's all about this local news lady who goes to do a story on the fire department, and then they get a call that there's a problem at an apartment building, and so they go and, oh, there's a zombie outbreak there, and that sort of thing, and they're all quarantined, and all that. It was pretty good. It was a found footage type approach, but still very similar in that you have this woman who, despite the odds, is basically the last survivor. And then she doesn't make it. Spoiler. But the Spanish version had a sequel. They both had sequels, but the Spanish version sequel was much better in that it wasn't a zombie outbreak per se. It was suggesting that zombie outbreaks was, well, demonic possession. What does that sound like? Yeah, very similar. So I'm thinking they kind of stole some of the elements from that about people being trapped in an apartment building, somewhat. I mean, there's a lot of differences, and not just because one's found footage and the other one didn't. But yeah, Quarantine and Rec or REC was much better. But this one, other than the change of venue, really didn't add much to it. And not that long after they'd already rebooted it before, and then had a TV series that unfortunately didn't get further seasons, and that was it. I think Bruce Campbell himself said he's done after that. He's executive producer on this and all that, but well, I didn't see any reason to do this film, so that's too bad. But anyway, there you go. Evil Dead Rises. Well, maybe not.